Why bother? He scoffed. I bothered. Now he's on his knees asking me to save his reputation while I sip champagne. My name's Claire, 30, female, and I still hear his voice in my head sometimes. That sneering laugh, that eye roll he thought was charming, the way he'd say, why bother? Like the whole world was a joke and I was the punchline. The he in question is Mark, 32, male, my ex-boyfriend. We were together for almost 5 years. 5 years of me carrying him, emotionally, socially, sometimes literally when he'd stumble drunk out of bars. And for most of that time, I convinced myself I was the strong one, the caretaker, the patient girlfriend who believed in his potential even when he spat on mine. It wasn't always like that. In the beginning, Mark had this energy that pulled people in. He'd walk into a room and instantly own it, not because he was brilliant, but because he was reckless in a way that felt like confidence. He was the guy who'd buy everyone shots at last call even if his rent was late, the guy who'd stand on tables at parties and belt out bad 80s ballads like he was headlining Madison Square Garden. It was stupid, but God, it was magnetic when you were in your 20s and mistaking chaos for charisma. Me? I've always been the opposite. I'm a planner. Organized, reliable, the friend who makes sure everyone gets home safe. I work in event planning, big conferences, galas, fundraisers. I thrive on details, on making things run seamlessly behind the curtain. Maybe that's why Mark and I clicked in the first place. He was the messy show, and I was the cleanup crew. Together, we looked balanced. Except balance has a way of tipping when one person starts believing they're the star and the others just stagehands. Mark didn't like my job. He'd mock it constantly. So you color code spreadsheets for a living? Cute? Meanwhile, his own career never really existed. He floated between business ideas that never made it past drunken napkin sketches. First, it was a podcast that never recorded a single episode. Then it was a clothing brand. He ordered 200 t-shirts with a misspelled logo, and they're still in his closet. Last year, it was crypto. He put $8,000 on a coin he couldn't even pronounce, lost it all in a month, and then told me I didn't understand risk. Whenever I tried to talk about my successes, landing a massive contract, pulling off an event that earned glowing reviews, he'd shrug. Why bother? That was his answer to everything. Why bother saving money? Why bother showing up on time? Why bother caring about what people think? It was his armor against responsibility, and I wore the bruises of it every day. The turning point came slowly, like water eroding stone. I'd noticed the way he'd put me down in front of friends, laughing at me for over-preparing when I had plans. He'd forget important dates. He once bailed on my sister's wedding because the game was on, then got mad when I went alone. Every time I tried to call him out, he'd scoff and say I was dramatic, too uptight, no fun. And I believed him. For years, I believed him, until the night he humiliated me in front of my entire company. It was supposed to be one of the biggest nights of my career. I'd spent 6 months planning this charity gala for a major hospital. 500 guests, a silent auction, media coverage, the whole thing. I was running on caffeine and adrenaline, dressed in a gown I'd saved up for, finally ready to enjoy the night after everything had fallen perfectly into place. And then Mark showed up. I'd told him weeks in advance. Black tie, classy, no games. He promised he'd be there to support me. What I didn't know was that he pre-gamed with his buddies before even stepping foot in the ballroom. He stumbled in an hour late, tie askew, already red-faced from whiskey, and immediately started working the room like he was the guest of honor. At first, I tried to play it off. I was used to smoothing over his rough edges, making excuses. Oh, he's just excited. He's got such a big personality. But then came the toast. My boss had asked me to say a few words about the event's success. I walked up to the microphone, heart pounding, and started thanking the sponsors and the team. And right as I said, "This night wouldn't have been possible without," Mark shouted from our table, "Claire, tell them about the time you cried over napkin colors." The ballroom went dead silent. A few people laughed awkwardly. My boss raised an eyebrow. Mark kept going, slurring into the hush. "She's like obsessive, guys. I mean, who freaks out over a centerpiece? Why bother, right?" He made this big show of rolling his eyes and miming tears like I was some caricature of a nagging housewife. I froze. I could feel my ears burning, my throat tightening, my hand gripping the microphone so hard it hurt. Everyone was staring. Donors, coworkers, board members. The room was supposed to see me as polished, professional, competent. And now all they saw was my drunk boyfriend making me look like a joke. I wanted the floor to open and swallow me. Instead, I smiled, tight, brittle, and forced myself to finish the speech while Mark kept chuckling like he'd just delivered the night's entertainment. Later, when I confronted him outside by the valet stand, his only response was, "Relax, they were laughing. You take yourself too seriously." He leaned against the wall, smirking, as if my whole world hadn't just collapsed inside that ballroom. That was Mark in a nutshell. He could torch everything I'd built, then act like I was insane for caring about the ashes. The fallout was brutal. My boss didn't say much, but I could tell the damage was done. I spent weeks trying to rebuild credibility with people who now saw me through Mark's mocking lens. And Mark? He acted like nothing had happened. He even bragged about it to his friends. That was the night something in me cracked. For years, I'd played the caretaker, the fixer, the buffer between him and the rest of the world. But standing there in that gown with mascara streaking my face, I realized I wasn't holding him up anymore. I was drowning with him. And that realization? It scared me more than anything. Don't forget to subscribe. After the gala, I pulled back from Mark. Not dramatically at first. I didn't storm out or end things that night, but something inside me had shifted. I stopped filling in his blanks, stopped covering for him. When he bragged about his business ventures, I didn't nod along anymore. When he made a mess, I didn't clean it up right away. I wasn't even trying to punish him. I was just exhausted. Mark noticed. One Saturday morning, I was sitting at the kitchen table going over invoices for a new event, highlighter in one hand, coffee in the other. He sauntered in, still half asleep, shirtless, rubbing his eyes. Normally, I'd make us breakfast, chat about our plans. That morning, I barely looked up. "Wow," he said, voice dripping sarcasm. "Guess I don't exist anymore." "I'm working, Mark," I said without looking up. He snorted. "Working, working, always working. You ever wonder why you're boring as hell?" Something in me snapped. I put the highlighter down and finally looked at him. "You humiliated me, Mark. In front of my boss. In front of everyone. And you act like it was funny. I'm tired of being your punchline." For a moment, he looked stunned. Then the storm hit. He slammed his hand on the table so hard my coffee sloshed over the invoices. "You think you're better than me? You think because you can plan some rich people's dinner party, you're above me?" His voice rose with each word, veins bulging at his neck. I stood up, shaking but steady. "No, Mark. I just think I deserve respect, which you can't give." He laughed. This wild, bitter laugh that didn't sound like him anymore. Then he swept his arm across the table, sending my papers flying to the floor. "Respect? You don't even respect yourself staying with me?" I froze. It was the first time he'd said something that cut too close to the truth. The next week, things escalated. He started calling me at work nonstop, leaving voicemails that swung between begging and raging. "Claire, I love you, don't throw this away," followed by, "Answer the damn phone, you ungrateful bitch." One night, I came home to find he'd torn a framed photo of us in half and left it on the counter. My friends started noticing too. My coworker, Jenna, 29, female, pulled me aside after a meeting and whispered, "Claire, you don't look okay, what's going on?" I wanted to tell her everything, but the shame kept me quiet. Meanwhile, Mark became obsessed with controlling the narrative. If I didn't post about him on social media, he'd accuse me of hiding him. If I went out without him, he'd blow up my phone. The carefree party guy I once knew was gone. What remained was someone unstable, paranoid, and dangerous when he felt cornered. And deep down, I knew I was cornering him without even meaning to. The moment I started pulling away, he felt it. And if there's one thing Mark couldn't handle, it was the idea of losing control. That's when the threats began. The first real threat wasn't even whispered. He screamed it. It was late on a Wednesday. I'd stayed late at the office to prep for another big event, and by the time I got home, I just wanted to shower and pass out. Instead, I opened my front door to find Mark sitting on the floor of my apartment, back against the wall, an empty whiskey bottle beside him. I froze. "How did you even get in here?" He held up my spare key, grinning like it was proof of loyalty instead of a violation. "Thought I'd surprise you." His eyes were bloodshot, his words slurred but sharp. You don't answer my calls, Claire. You ignore me. What am I supposed to think? You're supposed to respect my space, I snapped, my voice shaking. Get out, Mark. I mean it. That's when he exploded. He shot to his feet, knocked over the lamp, and started pacing like a caged animal. Oh, I see. I'm the villain now. I give you everything, my time, my love, and you treat me like trash. You don't give me love, I shot back. You give me chaos. The second I said it, I regretted it. His face twisted, and before I knew it, he'd grabbed the framed photo of my parents off the shelf and hurled it against the wall. Glass shattered everywhere. You think you're better than me? He screamed. You'd be nothing without me. Nobody would even remember your name if I didn't make you interesting. I was shaking so hard I could barely get the words out. Leave or I'm calling the cops. That got through, sort of. He stormed out, slamming the door so hard the frame rattled. But it didn't end there. 2 days later, he showed up at one of my events. I hadn't invited him. I hadn't even told him where it was. But somehow, there he was, swaggering in like he belonged, eyes darting around the room until they locked on me. I tried to ignore him, kept chatting with guests, but then I heard it, his voice loud and furious. She doesn't even care about you people. She just wants your money. Everyone turned. Guests, sponsors, my boss. Mark was red-faced, drunk, pointing at me like I was on trial. This woman's a fraud, he shouted. She treats me like dirt, like I don't matter, like she's too good for anyone. Ask her how many nights she cries over stupid napkins. Ask her. Security had to drag him out while he screamed my name like some twisted warning. I stood there frozen, every eye in the room burning into me, the humiliation cutting deeper than the first time. That night, I sat in my car in the parking lot, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. My career, my reputation, my sanity, he was tearing it all apart piece by piece. And for the first time in years, I wasn't just scared. I was angry. Don't forget to subscribe. Update, wow. I didn't expect so many people to actually read my post, let alone leave hundreds of comments. I spent half the night scrolling through them, alternating between laughing, crying, and screenshotting the best ones to send to my best friend Jenna. First of all, thank you. Seriously, I've been so deep in this thing with Mark that I forgot what normal even looks like. A lot of you said, Claire, you're not crazy, this is abuse. And, yeah. Reading that over and over finally sank in. Abuse doesn't always look like fists. Sometimes it's humiliation in a ball gown or glass shattering on your living room wall. And some of you, y'all are wild. Whoever said burn his t-shirts with the misspelled logo in a ceremonial bonfire? Tempting. Whoever suggested I hire a clown to follow him around yelling, why bother? I nearly spit out my coffee. I don't think I can get a clown, but damn, that's the kind of energy I need right now. But the comment that hit me hardest was this. He's trying to destroy your reputation because he knows that's what you care about most. So take away what he cares about. And I thought about it. What does Mark care about? Not work, he doesn't have a real job. Not family, he barely talks to them. What Mark lives for is image, that reckless charm, that fake bravado, being the loudest guy in the room. He needs to be adored, needs to be seen as the fun, untouchable guy. That's his weakness. And maybe, just maybe, that's where I hit back. Here's the thing. Mark has dirt. So much dirt. Failed business ventures, embarrassing videos, screenshots of him bragging about scams to his buddies. He once even asked me to help him fake invoices for one of his doomed projects. I've been sitting on it for years, too tired and too ashamed to do anything. But now, after what he pulled at my event, after watching him scream at me in front of hundreds of people, let's just say I'm not feeling very tired anymore. I don't want to spill too much yet because if Mark ever found this post, he'd blow a gasket. But I'll tell you this, I'm done playing the caretaker, done cleaning up his messes. If he wants to drag me down, fine. He can choke on the weight of his own garbage first. And when the time comes, I'll be holding a glass of champagne, watching him kneel in the wreckage. Stay tuned. After that update, I started pulling receipts, years of them. I'm not exaggerating when I say Mark handed me the keys to his destruction without even realizing it. He's careless, brags too much, never thinks long-term. My phone is a graveyard of screenshots. Him admitting to reselling counterfeit sneakers, talking about how he borrowed money from a friend without paying it back, even joking about scamming people through one of his short-lived investment clubs. At the time, I rolled my eyes and told myself, boys will be boys. Now I was staring at them like ammunition. The first thing I did was subtle. I created a burner Instagram account. Nothing flashy, just enough to look like a random follower. And I started posting. Old clips of Mark slurring through his business pitch nights, bragging about fooling investors, boasting about networking, when really he was just drunk at bars. I didn't even tag him at first. I just let the clips float around, hashtagged enough to get picked up. Within a week, someone had sent them to one of his old business partners, a guy named Kyle, who Mark had ripped off for a couple grand. Kyle messaged me directly. "Is this what I think it is?" "Yup," I wrote back. "And there's more." Meanwhile, Mark had no idea. He was too busy trying to win me back. After his public meltdown, he went into love-bombing mode. Flowers delivered to my office. Apologies scribbled on sticky notes left under my door. At 2 a.m., I'd get drunk voicemails. "Claire, you're my world. I'll die without you." The whiplash between rage and desperation was dizzying. One night, I found him sitting on the hood of my car in the parking garage, waiting for me after work. "I just want to talk," he said, eyes wide, jittery. "You're scaring me, Mark," I told him, stepping back. "I'm scaring you?" His voice cracked. "You're the one ruining my life. You won't even try to fix us." He pounded his fist on my car so hard the alarm blared, echoing through the garage. Security had to escort him out while he screamed my name. That was the moment I knew this wasn't just petty revenge anymore. It was survival. So I escalated. Remember those 200 t-shirts he had printed with the misspelled logo? Still sitting in his closet. I anonymously sent a photo of the stash to a local gossip page that covers small business scams. They ran a whole story. Local entrepreneur fails spectacularly. It wasn't even half the dirt I had, but the humiliation hit him hard. How do I know? Because the next morning, Mark showed up at my door red-eyed, shaking, holding his phone out like a smoking gun. "Did you do this?" I didn't flinch. "Why would I bother?" His laugh was hollow, desperate. "Because you want to destroy me." He wasn't wrong, but I didn't answer. I just shut the door in his face and let him stew. And that was only step one. Step two wasn't subtle. It was surgical. I'd been holding on to an email chain for almost 2 years, Mark bragging to his buddy about a fake invoice scheme he was running. Basically, he claimed he could consult for startups, bill them through a shell company, and pocket the money without ever delivering anything. The kicker? He'd actually conned 2 small businesses out of deposits. I had the receipts, names, dates, payment confirmations. And now so did the world. I packaged everything: emails, screenshots, even a video of him laughing about dumb clients, and sent it to a journalist I knew through work. I didn't even have to say much. Just, "This might interest you. Local entrepreneur, history of fraud." Within a week, the article dropped. Headline: Self-proclaimed businessman exposed for scamming startups. His face was plastered online, his quotes immortalized. They even embedded the video of him slurring, "Why bother? They'll never check." The fallout was immediate. His phone blew up. Angry ex-clients demanding money, friends cutting him off, his own parents apparently calling me to ask if it was true. I didn't answer. Mark lost it. He showed up at my building again, pounding on the lobby glass while shouting my name. When the doorman tried to stop him, Mark shoved him so hard he fell into a table of brochures. By the time police arrived, Mark was screaming that I had ruined his reputation and that I owed him my life. They had to drag him out kicking, thrashing like a wild animal. It didn't stop there. 2 nights later, my phone buzzed nonstop. Calls, texts, voicemails. I ignored them, but then my neighbor knocked on my door. "Claire," she whispered, pale. "He's outside. He's throwing your stuff in the street." I ran to the window and saw him. Mark, shirtless, veins popping, dumping a box of my old books and clothes onto the pavement, screaming for everyone to hear. "She's a fraud! She's nothing without me! Nothing!" Cars slowed. People recorded. Security tackled him before he could smash my windshield with one of the books. And you know what I did? I stood on my balcony, glass of champagne in hand, and watched. Silent, steady. Because this was it. His empire of ego was collapsing in real time, and all I had to do was let him destroy himself with the push I'd already given. Mark wasn't the untouchable life of the party anymore. He was the man on his knees, begging for scraps of reputation while the world laughed. And I wasn't drowning with him anymore. I was sipping, calm, finally above water. Update 2. So, remember when I said I was done playing caretaker? Yeah, I wasn't kidding. And I honestly thought some of you were exaggerating when you said, if you push him even a little, he'll burn himself down. Turns out you were prophets. The man practically lit the match himself. The article went viral. Not worldwide viral, but enough that in our city, everyone who's ever met Mark now knows him as that scammer who said, "Why bother?" on camera. My inbox was full of thank you messages from people he'd screwed over. One guy literally wrote, "I thought I was the idiot for trusting him. Now I know I was just one of many." That one made me cry. But the wildest part? Strangers were sending me clips of his public meltdowns, videos of him screaming in the street, neighbors recording him dumping my stuff, him thrashing while cops tried to haul him off. It's all online now. He wanted to be the center of attention so badly. Well, he got his wish, just not the way he dreamed. Reddit, I have to admit something. When I was standing on my balcony watching him unravel with champagne in my hand, I felt powerful. Not happy exactly, this isn't some Disney ending, but powerful. Like for once the scales weren't tipped against me. Some of you said I should have just gone no contact, walked away quietly. I get it. Maybe that would have been the healthy thing. But I spent years cleaning up his chaos while he laughed at me for caring. Years of being the joke, the boring one, the uptight planner. And when I finally stopped covering for him, he tried to torch me in front of everyone, so I torched back. And I won't lie, it was sweet. Where is Mark now? Last I heard, he's crashing at a cousin's place trying to beg people to believe he's the victim. But the receipts are out there, the videos are out there. His empire of funny guy with big ideas is ashes, and he did most of the burning himself. And me? I'm sleeping again, eating again, laughing again. I've got events to plan, friends to see, and zero interest in ever explaining myself to a man who thought, "Why bother?" was a personality. To everyone who told me to stand up for myself, thank you. To everyone who told me to play it safe, I respect you, but sometimes the most healing thing is watching the person who dragged you down choke on their own mess. Mark's on his knees now, begging me to help him fix his reputation. And I'm done. I bothered. That was his mistake. Now I sip champagne. The strangest part about revenge is what happens after. For months, my life had been orbiting around Mark. His moods, his chaos, my fear. Every day was either an explosion or the cleanup from the last one. And then suddenly, silence. No more flowers dumped at my office. No more midnight pounding on my door. Just nothing. At first, the quiet felt wrong, like standing in the wreckage after a storm and waiting for the next wave to hit. I kept checking the peephole when I heard footsteps in the hallway, kept bracing myself when my phone buzzed. Trauma does that. It wires you to expect disaster. But then, little by little, I started breathing again. I rejoined my running group. I went to brunch with Jenna without checking my phone every 5 minutes. I spent a Saturday morning rearranging my living room, realizing it finally felt like mine again. The absence of his voice, his mocking laugh, his constant "why bother?" It was like someone had turned off a radio that had been blaring in the background for years. Of course, Mark wasn't gone entirely. He popped up in predictable, pathetic ways. One afternoon, I got a handwritten letter in my mailbox. The handwriting was shaky, the words uneven. "Claire, please. I know I messed up. Everyone hates me now. You're the only one who can fix this. Please call me. M." I stared at it for a long time before tearing it into strips and dropping it in the trash. Another time, Jenna texted me a screenshot from Facebook. Mark had posted a long rant about fake women who betray you when you're down and tagged me by name. The comments were brutal, not against me, but against him. People were quoting the article, the videos, even memes that had started circulating about him. Someone had edited his face onto a t-shirt with the caption, "Why bother Scamco?" and it already had hundreds of shares. It should have been humiliating, but instead I felt free. He wasn't my problem anymore. His downfall was public property now. The last time I saw him in person was by accident. I was leaving a cafe downtown when I spotted him across the street. He looked smaller somehow, hunched, unshaven, wearing a hoodie pulled low over his face. For a split second, our eyes met. He froze. I lifted my coffee cup in a casual little toast, and then I walked away. No words, no drama, just distance. That was the moment it hit me. I wasn't the stagehand anymore, cleaning up after his show. The curtain had dropped, the performance was over. And for once, I didn't need to bother with him at all. Closure doesn't come all at once. It comes in tiny moments you don't even recognize until later. For me, one of those moments was at another gala, the first big event I ran after everything with Mark collapsed. It was for a children's foundation, all white tablecloths and soft string music. I remember standing near the stage, scanning the room, realizing no one was whispering about me anymore. They weren't looking at me like the woman with the drunk boyfriend who embarrassed her. They were looking at me like the professional who pulled off a flawless night. My boss came over, clinked glasses with me, and said, "This is your best work yet." And instead of hearing Mark's voice in my head, sneering, "Why bother?" I just heard my own. Steady, sure. The second moment was quieter. I was cleaning out my closet one Sunday when I found the box of Mark's junk I'd shoved in the back. Old hoodies, those ridiculous t-shirts with the misspelled logo, a crumpled notebook filled with half-baked business ideas. For a second, I felt that old urge to catalog, to clean, to make order out of his chaos. Instead, I grabbed a lighter. Jenna came over, and we carried the box to her backyard fire pit. We cracked open a bottle of champagne, sat cross-legged on the patio, and fed his things to the flames one by one. The smoke curled into the sky, acrid and freeing. When the last t-shirt turned to ash, Jenna raised her glass and said, "To bothering." We laughed until our stomachs hurt. The final moment came a week later. An email pinged in my inbox, anonymous, but I knew who it was. One line, "Please help me, just tell people I'm not what they think." For the first time, I didn't even feel anger, just pity. I closed the email, poured myself a glass of champagne, and sat by the window as the city lights blinked back at me. Because here's the truth. He was exactly what people thought. He was the chaos, the storm, the joke that stopped being funny. And I was done being his audience. He once asked, "Why bother?" Like life was pointless, like effort was weakness. But I bothered. I built. I survived. And now? Now, he's on his knees begging for scraps of reputation while I sip champagne in peace. And for the first time in years, I don't feel like I'm drowning. I feel like I'm finally fully breathing.